Sandy should really be up here with me. She has been really pushing this project that we're going to talk about today. She's helped us tremendously with it. As Sandy said, I'm the director of Kentucky River District Health Department, and actually today marks my 24th year in public health. So kind of telling my age, but I've seen a lot of changes. Dr. Hacker was in here earlier. He was our commissioner for several years and was a really big advocate for Eastern Kentucky because he knows our people, he knows our needs, he knows our challenges. We've worked in health education for the entire time that I've been with the health department, different initiatives, different activities. In 2008, we started our school health services. That was when we put in a registered nurse in several of our schools. Our plan was to do 3 schools, one in Perry, one in Letcher, and one in Knott. That quickly spread, and we ended up, we started in August with 3. By the end of the first semester, we had 33. So it really expanded, and it just took off. When one school got it, they really saw the value, and so they wanted it in every school. Our goal with that is to make sure that the kids are healthy. You can't teach kids if they're not in their seat, if they're not feeling well. Fran sort of alluded to that. You know, if they're not able to engage, then you're not going to educate that child. We went around and we looked at some of the different sites. Whitley County was one of the sites that we toured, and one of the things that they told us, and I thought was just so valuable, was sometimes that kid needs nothing more than a hug. So you're kind of meeting all those goals. When we got the program started, when we were starting on that small scale, we wrote a grant, a HRSA grant, to fund the rest of the schools because we wanted to expand that program. It expanded so fast that we had all of our schools staffed, equipped before we pretty much got the grant. But we were awarded a HRSA grant in early 2009. And so we used some of that money to roll out our program, and some things happened. Medicaid managed care came along, the MCOs, there was issues with payments and different kinds of things. So we kind of had to scale back our school health program as far as the number of schools. In 2014, we actually started talking with then Commissioner Stephanie Mayfield about some ways to expand some programs into our schools, or just programs that the health department had that could help us reach some more funding streams, could help us reach some more patients. And one of the things we talked about that came up pretty quickly was telemedicine. And at that point, we weren't focused entirely on schools. We were focused on getting health care to our people. You know, we serve 7 rural counties. The number of specialists aren't readily available. People have transportation issues, so we were trying to look at the ways to surmount those problems. But we remembered we had this grant money that was sitting there that we hadn't used. So we thought of doing the telehealth, starting that in our schools, and having that be a link to those students whose parents don't take them to the doctor. We were seeing, our nurses were seeing the same kid, 3 days in a row. They come in, they have an earache, they ask, they send a note home, I saw your child today, they need to go to the doctor. I think they have an ear infection. Kid would come back tomorrow, kid would come back the next day. And so that was one of the issues that we kind of wanted to tackle. And we have a family nurse practitioner who travels 4 of our counties, and we thought she can see those kids. If we can get that telemedicine equipment in there, our school nurse can link up to her, she can treat that child. When we first started talking about it, our Family Resource Center directors were over the moon. They were probably one of the biggest advocates that we had because they knew those kids. And one of them told me, she said, okay, you can call the script in, I can go get the medicine, I can take it to the home, or I can just, we can let the nurse give it here. If it's a 1-a-day antibiotic, the nurse can give it here. We can make sure this child is treated. They know that need much better than I do. So that was kind of where we started. That was the easy part. From March of 2015, really through May of this year, we worked on the technology piece. It blew my mind that the Kentucky Department for Public Health web folks, or the technology folks on this side, could not work with the folks on the Kentucky Department of Education side. I thought they're 2 state systems, they should be able to talk. I'm not a technology guru, but I've learned a lot about firewalls and security and this program doesn't mesh with this program. So really and truly, it worked. I mean, we worked on that for over 2 years, just trying to get that technology piece worked out. It was just, I mean, we almost gave up. We just about threw in the towel and said, we're just never going to get this to work because we can't get those two technology groups on the same page. However, this summer, we finally got the right people at the table. And I have to give a huge shout out to Sandy, because Sandy sort of stumbled up on this. We sort of started talking about it in some of the meetings that I was having with Sandy's group. And so Sandy was a key player. Superintendent Kim King with Knott County Schools, her technology folks, Brent Hoover, and I think Coy, and their entire Board of Education staff really worked at getting the right people, getting the conversations going, and so we finally got this off the ground. Right now we have it in 5 schools in Knott County, and we have it in 3 schools in Wolfe County. Those schools in Wolfe County aren't up and operational yet, but we're very close. We had our first telemedicine visit that took place between a student at Carr Creek Elementary and our nurse practitioner who was at the Knott County Health Department on August the 22nd of this year. So we were very excited. We're not fully functional in all the schools. We're continuing to work on that. Bandwidth usually is an issue. One of the things that we found out was we tested all this stuff during the summer when there was not any students in the building. So when all the students get there, especially in your high schools, when all the students get there and they get on their smartphones and they get on their tablets and they get on the wireless, it really causes problems, and that we can't get our equipment to work because there's just too much congestion. So that's something we're still working on. We've also found out that in order to be Medicaid billable, which is that's our biggest payer source, and everything has to have a payer source. But in order to be Medicaid billable through the telemedicine group of Kentucky, you have to have a certain software, which we didn't have. So we're working on that piece. That software is on our computers now, but it's not totally functional. It doesn't totally talk to our scopes, to our otoscopes, to our stethoscopes. So that's another obstacle that we're working on, but we're getting there. And even though we don't have that approval to bill Medicaid, if our nurse has a kid who comes in and needs to be seen, we're still seeing that patient, because ultimately that's our goal. Our goal is ultimately to serve those children, to keep them healthy, to keep them in the seats so the educators can teach them. We're not educators, but that's our goal. In the future, we would like to see this expand out so that those students in your school that see a specialist, whether it's a pulmonologist, a neurologist, an endocrinologist, when they have those specialist visits every 3 months, that they can see those from school. I have a son who's type 1 diabetic. We go to Knoxville to see the endocrinologist 4 times a year. That's a whole day that he's out of school. Well, he's not anymore because he's out of school. But when his whole high school career, he was out of school 4 days a year because we had to go to see the endocrinologist. And we had to drive 3.5 hours. Not everybody has that option. Not everybody, and you all know those students in your schools, not everybody has that option to drive 3 hours or 2 hours or even to come to Pikeville. I mean, if you're in Owsley County, coming to Pikeville is a trip. So some of those, we want to help bridge those barriers. If they can do that visit at school, they lose maybe 30 minutes of instructional time rather than an entire day. It makes them a better student. If their disease is managed, we've talked about that across the lifespan. There's several speakers here today have talked about that. In order to have a healthier adult, you have to start with the kids, because you're trying to teach them how to take care of themselves. That's part of our goal. If we can teach those kids how to manage those chronic diseases, I mean, they already have them, they can't help it. There's nothing, you can't reverse type 1 diabetes, although I wish you could. I pray for that every day. But, you can't reverse that. So if you teach that kid to manage their blood sugars, to manage their A1C, to do the things that they need to do to make themselves healthier, then, maybe you're going to save dialysis, or you're going to save, all of those severe complications that you see, especially in your older populations. So those are our future plans, is to expand that, to to make those services readily available right in the community. And I'm going to be the favorite speaker because you're going to get out of here early because of me. But do you all have any questions or any comments? Thank you.